Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Burning Rubber Podcast. I'm Jake Scarborough, joined by co-hosts Skylar Boggs and Fidel Fabian. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
All right. Well, lots to talk about in the world of motorsport, mostly in the open wheel side of things. Fidel's got a smile on his face, so I'm worried. Nevertheless, to kick things off, Vegas review. We'll start off with the truck series. Skylar, your opinions?
I feel like it was a pretty good race. It was some good battles at the end, towards the end of the race and stuff like that. And of course, it was really nice to see Raja finally get that first victory for him. It was definitely nice to see, especially with um, the Cup guys in the field that he had with Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice to see him get his first win though.
No?
Yeah, it's nice to see Roger Carruth win that race. For me, the race itself felt a bit slow. Uh, Not a whole bunch going on except for a few three-way battles here and there, but I don't know, it was like a decent race. I give it like a 7.5 out of 10.
I mean, I think it's a lot better than a lot of truck races we've had just in general recently. It was fairly clean, not a lot going on. Um, as you guys mentioned, Raja winning, that's a huge deal. Happy to see him win. I truthfully believe that Kyle Busch being a teammate for him these past couple races has kind of helped him out a little bit. He's had someone with a lot of experience to lean on. So to see, Kyle's got a few more starts here and there with Spire, it's going to be cool to see if he can lean on Kyle a little bit more, get a little more out of him, and, you know, figure stuff out more. But he's looking to have a breakout year nonetheless. With the Xfinity race, however, I feel like different opinions can be said about that one. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I was at work during the race and I didn't care enough to watch highlights. So this is for you guys to discuss.
I mean, it was just like any other regular Xfinity race. Not much happened, to be honest. But it was just your average race. Not a lot happened. There was a couple battles, but that's about it. So I mean, it was the most exciting thing, but it was still just a regular race. It wasn't like any other race where it was overtime after overtime and stuff like that. It was pretty probably the most tame race in a while, considering what the Xfinity series has been through, considering Daytona and Atlanta and stuff like that. And, the last couple of races of the previous season has had a lot of overtime finishes in recent races as well. So, I mean, probably like a 6 out of 10 for the race, to be honest. You know, just a normal race, to be honest. That's the best way I can put it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with Jake. I barely watched the race. I've watched like a few laps. I don't even remember most of the race. I know Nemechek won, but I'll give credit to Kylie for watching that.
Yeah, no, I got home from work and joined a Discord call where they were reacting to it and saw 7 laps to go and JHN was leading and I was just like, oh well, glad I didn't miss much. Um, Aside from that, we had the Cup Series race, which honestly was the star of the weekend in my opinion. Fairly good racing, but Kyler?
Yeah. It was, I was at work, of course, for excuse me, for most of it, but towards the end of the race, it's sort of now that the drivers have had a couple of years with the next gen car. This is sort of turning into like the 2019 package, from what I've noticed, because within the last 10 laps of the race, Larson was sort of just blocking, Reddick, where Reddick was going and creating a bunch of dirty air on the front of this car. And I mean, yeah, the next gen has provided good racing, but it's sort of falling into that same type of racing as the 2019 package, because drivers are starting to figure out more of what they can and can't do with it, as far as how to get runs and stuff like that. Because when Reddick was not behind Larson at all, he was gaining a lot, And when Larson was, continuing to block the runs, it just made it more difficult for Reddick to even get close to him to get to pass, because the moment you get in front of another car, they just put so much dirty air and you just lose the front end. And Reddick was very frustrated after the race because, he just couldn't make a move when he got to him. Getting up to drivers is one thing, passing them is another, especially with this next gen car, from what I've noticed.
Yeah, this past Las Vegas weekend for Cup, first I want to say it was a big increase in production value for Fox. Clinton Boyer was a bit more, I want to say good, but more tolerable this past weekend. Even Howard making some jokes about him during the broadcast and him taking it as like a good sport. But there was one thing that kind of made no sense where Bubba Wallace's pit crew they had a stuck tire on the car for 12 laps straight, but Fox did not cover it a single lap. They did say after the whole situation that happened, what happened to Bubba. And even though Bubba was multiple laps down, he still was able to go out there and help Tyler Reddick try and go catch Larson. But still some minor things to work out at Fox, but better display of production this past weekend. 2311's pit crew is still a bit messy these past couple of years, even with the switching around the pit crew between 2311 and Joe Gibbs. There still needs to be some improvement on the 2311 side. But overall, Las Vegas being kind of mediocre racing, it's still pretty good compared to what we have with the 550 package. So overall, I'll give it like a 8 out of 10 from me.
Hmm. Truthfully, I thought the race was fairly well. Um, didn't really see anything bad about it. As Kyler said, yeah, now that they've gotten a couple more years with the next gen, people have figured it out. I think it was Cliff Daniels, right? That's Larson's crew chief. Yeah,
Yep.
he was saying after the race, we had a setup that could come here and kick ass, and now we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board because people are starting to figure out what to do at some of these tracks, and I feel like that could add for better product. But as Kyler was saying, you've also got guys that are a lot more experienced with this car. They're gonna know how to make it a living nightmare with dirty air and stuff like that. And we saw Larson obviously be the king of that last weekend. So with these mile and a halves, it's going to be interesting to see, how is dirty air going to play effect now that these guys know more about what they're doing to the car behind them. Um, Obviously, the race itself was solid. Larson winning. It was close battle. We saw Bubba try to help out Reddick towards the closing laps, even well, as Fabian said, multiple laps down. But solid race weekend as a whole, I think, for NASCAR in Vegas. So they're going into Phoenix with a lot of momentum because they've had, a 3 week stretch of, solid weekends. So, with it being the real first short track, I guess, we're going to see what happens. Moving on from that, our open wheel news across the pond, basically. Um, Formula One raced in Bahrain to start off their season this past weekend, and it kind of went how a lot of people expected it. Kyler, you take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen obviously dominated from start to finish, winning by, a significant margin. It was 22 seconds. But um, I feel like something from Bahrain that not a lot of people talked about is Lance Stroll's recovery from when he spun on when he got hit on the first lap from Nico Hulkenberg to, go back and, finish in the top 10, finishing 10th, just ahead of Guan Yu Zhou in 11th, who was, I think, like maybe 2 seconds behind him at that point towards the race. But a lot, obviously the big story after Bahrain was, the teammate tension between Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda after the race, because Tsunoda was not happy with the call letting Daniel through, who was on soft tires, and And after the race, Sonoda wasn't happy with it. He speeds by Ricciardo and locks up the tires and pretty much dive bombs him, and then speeds back again aggressively. It was on the F1 TV broadcast. I don't know if it was shown on the regular broadcast, like the Sky Sports broadcast, or not. But it was talked about after the race with Will Buxton, and Ricardo just called it, pretty much immaturity. And I agree with him, because you can't be doing that stuff after the race and stuff, because every driver has their normal cool down procedures heading into the pit lane after the race. And Sonoda, this is his third year in F1, and he needs to, he's still very young, but in my opinion, he needs to realize that you can't be doing that stuff. And he's pretty much in F1 because of the Honda backing that initially came in, or came back to support Red Bull, and at the time AlphaTauri as well. So Sonoda really needs to realize that he needs to be a team player in these situations, because Ricciardo mentioned that it was talked within the team about him going on the soft tires towards the end of the race to begin with. And it they weren't fighting for points anyways, but at the same time they were trying to get their team's best result. But I think Sonoda just needs to calm down about that stuff. I know it's frustrating for him, but he just needs to keep cool about it.
You ever step in one day and watch the F1 race weekend?
I I watched highlights. Yeah, I think if you kind of expected less of Max, I honestly, truthfully, don't know what to tell you. Obviously, he had a huge margin of victory. I think the biggest keynotes were, as Kyler explained, with Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. So a little bit of the hot stuff in the, well, not AlphaTauri, but RB as they're referring to them,
Mm-hmm.
paddock area. I think the other hot notes are, Alpine isn't where they were last year. They've taken a lot of steps backwards, and both their drivers have confidence that they can move back up the grid before the end of the year, but I'm not fully certain about that. Another thing, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but Helmut Marko came out with a statement after the race mentioning that Perez, didn't get shat on for once. Another thing he pointed out was apparently he wasn't pushing towards the end of the race because he had second place secured over Signs, but he was so far back off of Max that there was no point in pushing. So, is this a good sign for Perez? I want to hear your guys' input, or is that just kind of Helmet talking out of his ass like he's known to do?
I mean, I think now that, it's the new year, new season, I think for now at least, Perez is, comfortable for now at least, with, the media and stuff like that. Because I know that last season, it was, at the very early part of the season, it was talks of, is Checo gonna finally, match Max with you know, be on pace with Max. That obviously didn't happen towards the middle of the part of the season, especially towards the end. Because that will probably be this sort of bad moment in Paris's Red Bull stint, at least in his career. But I mean, I mean, I agree with Helmut, to be honest, because like you're let's say 15 seconds behind Max. There's really no point in trying to ruin your race and catch Max, and you got a comfortable gap behind. So I agree with them. There was no really real reason to push with the car and stuff like that, and risk spinning yourself out or getting damage on a curb or anything like that. So I mean, I think it's fine with Helmut, to be honest.
I think Dr. Helmut Marko is a senile old man, but this is one of the few times where I actually kind of agree with him.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Okay, you caught me off guard with that.
yeah, with Marco's history in Formula One, he just sees a trendy driver step into like a back market Formula One car, does slightly good, decides to throw into a Red Bull affiliated car, starts to see that they have a few issues, throw them out, and then they repeat the same cycle. But this is one of the few times where I slightly agree with Dr. Helmut Marko. I think he actually sees something good in Perez, unlike what he said about Perez last year. And I'm surprised he still has a job to this day. But overall, yeah, I can see why Dr. Helmut Marko said what he said.
Mhm. Well, in other Formula One news, we've got quite a bit of this. To start off, obviously, we didn't really get into it because it was rumors at the time, and I didn't feel like mentioning it. The Red Bull shit show that's going on with Christian Horner. It was announced the other day that Red Bull has suspended with pay the uh, the member of the team that made accusations about Christian Horner. So now media backlash is all over the place. Apparently, uh, someone leaked all these texts and emails and stuff to media, and they're being reached out to by Horner's lawyers saying if they reveal any of it themselves, they're getting sued. And it's just a downward spiral of shit. And I don't even know what else to talk about. Is them suspending this worker without pay retaliation? Are they doing it because, hey, let's not deal with this right now? But at the same time, it looks very bad that Christian Horner is still um, kind of in control of things at Red Bull for the most part with all this going on. But what's your guys' takes?
I mean, obviously, with the speculation and everything, I've seen pictures, from when Christian Horner was being asked from the media about everything. He seemed a little bit uncomfortable, with what was going on, and I think it was after the race that Jos Verstappen was having a really heated discussion with Christian Horner about I. I'm gonna assume it was about that and stuff, and about his quote unquote leadership of the team and stuff. Because I mean, if these texts and stuff, because I'm sure everyone's seen it at this point, if these texts are real and stuff, it's not a good look on Christian's part. But I don't agree with um, I feel like whenever it comes to these things, I feel like it should be dealt with in a private manner, and I'm sure Red Bull is taking care of that very seriously because this has been going on since I want to say pretty much in the middle of February, if I had to, from when it was first brought up.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but no, Yas was not happy with Christian, and there's been pictures of Yas talking to Toto Wolff, and there's been rumors of Max going to Mercedes next year, and if I'm going to be honest, it's going to be very likely because of the fact that with all that's going on in the Red Bull organization, I just feel like it's going to only get worse as time goes on because the more we find out about this stuff, it's not looking great for Christian. And the thing is, if Christian Horner leaves Red Bull, so does Adrian Newey.
Yeah.
And if both of them leave, then Red Bull is they have no idea what to do for the future because that's gonna assume Max is gonna leave and Perez will probably stay there. But if that happens, Red Bull has to find a second driver, and they don't really have anyone. Maybe Ricardo, but Ricardo's in his in his mid 30s at this point, so he doesn't have much left in Formula One, in my opinion, at least, because you know um it's just it doesn't look like a good moment for Red Bull at the moment at this time. So if I had to guess, things will start speculating more and more. A little bit, probably about a month or two before the summer break, around Silverstone or a race like that, and moments time and stuff. And if I had to guess, there is going to be probably be some major announcement in the summer break heading into Spa.
Yeah, with situations like these, we have to obviously say allegedly to every single sentence we say so we don't get sued. But from what I can understand, is it Red Bull themselves that are investigating the situation, or is it third party lawyers that are investigating the situation?
It was Red Bull first, and then Christian Horner's lawyers.
Okay, so from what I understand, it sounds a lot very similar to what Activision Blizzard was going through about 3 years ago, where there was a lot of accusations about inappropriate conduct within the offices. A lot of employees started to leave the company. Even higher ups were getting accused. And it sounds like the entire song and dance from what happened 3 years ago. Obviously, I don't want to say anything concrete. I don't want to say that Horner did do it, but I also don't want to say that he didn't. So all I can say is I hope for the best for both sides of the situation.
Um, I mean, my whole input is, yeah, I'm gonna agree with Kyler on this one. As you said, if all these texts and everything are real, that's not a good look for Red Bull. That's not a good look for Christian Horner himself, obviously. Um, the fact of the matter is, Red Bull themselves investigated it. They said, "Oh yeah, Horner did nothing wrong. He's gonna continue his, job." But it doesn't look good when you suspend the person that made the accusations with pay. Because I mean, yeah, sure, it's with pay, but you're still punishing that employer when the whole legal matter itself hasn't been settled. So it looks like retaliation from their part instead of waiting for a thorough investigation to be over with from a third party. Obviously, as you mentioned, everything with Verstappen's dad and all that about him possibly leaving Red Bull. My whole input on this, and I was telling Fidel about it. Remember in 2020 or no, 2021 when Verstappen won the title, right? Remember how there was a bunch of things falling in line where it was like, oh yeah, it's similar to the first year Vettel won his first championship, right? And there was all these little details that matched up perfectly. What if we're about to see Max Verstappen do the same thing as Sebastian Vettel, win multiple titles in a row with Red Bull? Something happens at the team. Oh, he's going to a team now that is on the back burner after it used to be a top team. That's what Vettel did with Ferrari. That's what Max is about to do with Mercedes. Sure, it's a long shot, but so many things are falling in line for it to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it does at this rate.
And not only that, Gerhard Berger, who is also close with, Jos Verstappen and Max's family, said that Max is going to be at Mercedes next year, and without a doubt.
Yeah. And it's a lot of things happening, and I feel like Red Bull not I would say, yeah, Red Bull is treating this seriously, but I feel like they treated it poorly because now you're about to lose your top driver because of a bunch of stuff your boss, decided to
Hmm.
do. Allegedly. As Fidel said, you have to say allegedly. Um, but it's an interesting situation nonetheless. Um, I'm I'm curious to see how this continues to spiral out and, what happens in the long haul for Max, what happens in the long haul for Horner, and so on and so forth. Um, to keep it in the F1 ballpark, a few other things. One of them was it was the FIA president that's getting investigated for basically rigging the race.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know much details about it. I feel like one of you two would know a little more if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I think based on what I've read, the FIA president went into, I think it was the stewarding room, and basically was like, don't give Fernando Alonso that penalty of whichever, penalty it may have been, but it was something along the lines of that, and they went ahead with it and just didn't give him a penalty, again of whatever it may have been, but that doesn't look good on FIA's part because they're the sanctioning body of Formula One and other motorsports across the world. So, um, there's it's I'm sure things will be ask more about it heading into this, this weekend as well, because since they're racing in Saudi Arabia still, um, and then after that they don't race for another 2 weeks, I don't think. But it doesn't look good whenever the president of the FAA is going to the stewards room and is like, "Hey, don't do that. Let it be," and stuff like that.
Yeah, basically everything what Kyler just said. I got nothing else to add on it, but this may be something to keep on looking on in the future. That's all I can say.
All right. Um, I think that covers it aside from the big news going into this weekend. To chime in on that. Or Kyler, is there something I'm missing?
Yes. This weekend, Signs will not be racing
Yeah,
in Saudi Arabia. It'll be Oliver Behrman, because Signs will have surgery.
surgery.
So Ollie Behrman from F2, his first season in F2 with Prima was last year, and he's got a little bit more experience, and he's done a couple of tests. I think Mexico last year as well, where he did FP1 as well, and he has shown some pretty fast pace. Obviously, just missing out in Q3 earlier today. Just behind Hamilton within a tenth. I think that's very good from him. Obviously, it's not where he wanted to be. Obviously, because he's in Ferrari, but it's a good start for him in my opinion. Obviously, it was a last minute thing because um, heading into this weekend, everything seemed normal. And then literally as I woke up, I saw the breaking news and I was surprised by it because this was not, a raise of concern at all as far as, Carlos Sainz's health goes and stuff.
Yeah. Appendicitis will do that to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fidel, you got anything to chime on that?
Uh, nothing really. I just can't imagine the position Science is in right now. Not only that he's losing his ride at the end of the year, but has to get surgery out of just for appendicitis that came out of nowhere. That's all I got.
I think this is a cool opportunity for Ollie Behrman. I think, seeing how he did in qualifying today, barely missing Q3, I think if he takes advantage of this opportunity, sort of how Nick DeVries did when he had his opportunity at Monza a couple years ago, if he has a strong showing, we could see a guy that finds himself locked in a seat next year just based off of this one race. Um, Obviously, I don't think anyone really expected this to happen since, it just kind of strikes like that. Shitty situation for Carlos Sainz, as Fidel said. He's just came off a podium finish in Bahrain. Doesn't have a ride at the end of the year. He's trying to show out, and now the guy replacing him is going to take advantage of this opportunity to try finding himself a seat. So that's possibly one less opportunity for Carlos Sainz at the end of the year. Um, so he's going to be a guy to watch this weekend for sure to see how he does, especially in an obvious top contending car. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what he does for sure. With that, we have more open wheel news this time in America for IndyCar. It was revealed a couple weeks ago from Arrow McLaren that David Malukas broke his hand or wrist, whatever. Callum Ilott will be replacing him this weekend. Guy who, in my opinion, should have a ride in general full time, but got the shit end of the stick. So, what's going on this weekend in your guys' opinion for Ilott?
I think it's a big opportunity for him. Uh, Obviously last year he had a really good, season with Junkos Holliger, and in my opinion, he should have stayed on the team. But at the same time, I feel like it was, sort of like a mutual thing to part ways at the end of the season because, excuse me, because of the fact that things weren't going well with the team, and a lot of and not only that, in my opinion, it was completely unacceptable from the fans of Augustine Canapino to send death threats multiple times to Ilott, notably in Long Beach whenever he came out of the pit lane and sort of got in his way a little bit. But I think now that it does suck that Callum Ilott's not in a ride, but I feel like it's better for him to not be at Juncos Holliger because of what happened last year and everything. But as far as racing this weekend for McLaren, I think he's gonna obviously make the best of the opportunity, and um, he seems he was very fast in practice. I think he was top 5 in practice this today. If
He
I
finished 10th.
10th, okay,
Yeah.
but still top 10 regardless, though. So I think the pace is obviously there with him, and I think qualifying he'll definitely make it into the Firestone Fast Six. For the race, on the other hand, who knows how that's going to happen? We saw the chaos last year, but I think it'll be a good showing for him. He deserves it, obviously, but it should be good for him for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Kyle, even Aller, right? He's still showing a lot of talent in IndyCar. Going off of practice results, he went faster than his old teammate and now his current teammate, which is or temporary teammate, Alexander Rossi, who placed 14th. Uh, this could show other IndyCar teams what he still has to show off, even I wouldn't say top tier equipment, but at least pretty damn good equipment. But other than that, I got nothing else to say. I think his actions on track show who he is and what he can do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This year Juncos has the partnership with McLaren, so it kind of seems bittersweet in a way. The team that he had an agreement to just part ways, whatever the reasons for that were. Um, but Ilot's obviously got speed to not have any sim practice really. He's been dealing with stuff over with WEC. He wasn't expecting to do this race. So to get one test session out of it and be good and then go into practice this weekend, be quick. It's going to be interesting to see how he does the rest of this weekend. Obviously, qualifying is going to be the big one, but this is a team that's put itself in position to win St. Pete before. So I have no doubt in my mind that if he, uses what he knows about the car and takes advantage of the people he's around, I truly think that he could be a contender for the win this weekend. Um, and if he does win, I feel like there's going to be a team out there willing to kind of sport out another car if they need to. We saw a lot of mid-season driver changes last year because of performance and sponsorship and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, Ilott get some sort of opportunity like that where he kind of gets the move in. So, nevertheless, keep an eye on Ilott. He's going to be a big name this weekend to watch out for. But moving on from that, we have, I don't think any more IndyCar news. Not necessarily any NASCAR news, unless we kind of mention the SHR backup hauler wrecking in El Paso, Texas last night.
There is
Um, oh,
IndyCar news though, with Dale Coyne.
oh, that's right.
They've announced their drivers. Nolan Siegel, who is from Indy NXT from the previous year, is going to do a couple of races, and then Jack Harvey, who was previously at Ray Hall Letterman and Lanigan, and Colin Braun, who is most notably from sports car and a very long time ago from NASCAR with Roush. So I think it's definitely interesting with those drivers. Obviously, Dale Coyne isn't a top continued team, but it's a solid team to start your IndyCar experience for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
uh, I kind of zoned out for a second because thinking about Colin Braun the Roush days. Yeah, literally exactly what Kyra just said. I got nothing else for IndyCar and Dale Coyne.
um, I'm gonna look at it this way. what the hell was Delcoin doing all off season? Why did he just figure out his driver lineup the week before the season opener? All these guys had one test session. What what is happening? I do think it's an oddball to kind of get that sort of lineup. Obviously, Jack Harvey's one of the guys that kind of was referring to where he got booted out the seat last year for Yuri Vips, and it's gonna be odd to see, can he kind of rebuild a name for himself with this opportunity? Obviously, as Kyler mentioned, Dale Coyne, a small team, they've won a handful of races, but those were all with Sebastian Bourdais, for the most part. So it's gonna be odd to see, a veteran who hasn't really made a proper name for himself and a young rookie, and then a guy who doesn't have experience with this stuff. But nevertheless, I do think that it's going to be a strong year for all three of them if they can figure out what they're doing quickly. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them all just kind of hanging out in the back this weekend, considering they all didn't really get track time. Jack Harvey may be the star of the show from that team simply because he's the only one with proper experience in that car. Um, but not high expectations, but they're not low either for Dale Quinn this year. Aside from that, we have predictions for this weekend's races. NASCAR has the Cup and Xfinity Series in Phoenix for race number 4.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, your guys' picks.
Well, for Xfinity, I'm gonna go with William Byron. He seems, very strong at the track in previous years. I don't believe he's won there yet, but with being in the 17 Hinger cars in Xfinity, I think he'll be very fast. John Hernimachek will also probably contend for the win, but I think it'll be Byron for Xfinity, and then um, for Cup, I'm gonna go with Christopher Bell. To be honest, he's shown a lot more speed in my opinion at Phoenix. Previously, so I think Christopher Bell is gonna pretty much. I don't know about dominant, but he's definitely gonna race up there for the win for sure. And I was right about Kyle Larson last week with Vegas, considering he dominated the race. So I'm gonna go with Christopher Bell for the Cup race and William Byron for the Xfinity race. To be honest.
I'm gonna go with a bit of a wild prediction for this weekend at Phoenix for the Xfinity Series.
Oh
I
boy.
say Jesse Love gets a win in that 2 car at Phoenix. And for Cup, I say it's gonna be Byron. He had a strong showing last year at Phoenix for the championship race. I think he can pull it off this time around.
For Xfinity, I'm gonna go ahead and say Sammy Smith. I Just a weird kind of pick, but I feel like it's not far-fetched. For the Cup Series, call me whatever you want. I'm placing my pick on Chase Briscoe. He's won here before for this race. SHR has proven they've got decent speed this year. We've seen Chase Briscoe towards the front so far this season. He hasn't been, hanging towards the rear, or at least like mid-pack like he was last year. So if they kind of bring in the same adjustments and setup they've had for the past 2 years there, I wouldn't be surprised to see him contend for the win, especially with the fact that the team seems to have speed again. So we'll see what can happen with that. But yeah, I'm going Sammy Smith, Chase Briscoe for the weekend. Then with IndyCar predictions, may as well pick the whole podium here. Your guys' picks.
Honestly, if he can keep it clean, which is up in the air, but I think if he can keep it clean, it'll be Colton Herta finishing
Okay.
third, in my opinion. And I and for the winner, I'm gonna go with Marcus Armstrong. He's seen to have a lot of pace towards the end of last year, and um, I believe he can be a real contender here at St. Pete because he's shown a lot of speed on the street and road courses in the past. And then Pato Ward and Felix Rosenquist also seem pretty fast. But I'm gonna go with Marcus Armstrong the winner, Rosenquist second, and Colton Hurta third.
Okay.
I can't believe Kyler took my pick. I was gonna pick Marcus Armstrong for the win.
Yeah, he was third in practice, so
Yeah, I say Marcus Armstrong gets the win. But for second and third, I'm gonna say Will Power and Felix Rosenquist.
okay. You ready for this one, guys?
Oh boy, here we
All
go.
right, so third place, we're gonna go with the Thirsty Threes. Scott McLaughlin's going to finish third,
Okay.
a guy who's won here before. Second place, it's going to be an Arrow McLaren car. It's going to be, I'm gonna say Callum Ilott gets second. This is going to be a race where, Rosenquist or Rosenquist was there last year, but obviously he knows what he's doing this year outside of the team. So he's obviously taken notes from the team. But for the winner, I'm gonna have to say Aaron McLaren gets that 1-2. Pato Award's gonna get what he could have won last year, I believe it was, where the engine sparked and basically killed his entire race in the closing laps. So yeah, Award, Ilott, McLaughlin, that's gonna be your podium in my opinion. Moving forward to the F1 race, I feel like this is gonna be kind of the same across the board, but podium
Um,
predictions.
honestly, I mean, obviously Max is probably gonna win comfortably, unless he has some sort of issue. But honestly, second place, I think Fernando Alonso is going to do it. He's
Well,
shown a lot of pace in practice. He's been up there in qualifying, so I think Aston Martin, it has their pace again like they did last year. Obviously, it's probably not where they want to be. I know that I think Stroll just barely made it in the top 10. I think, if I'm not mistaken, but I think Alonso will finish second, and honestly, I think third place will be Lando Norris. If I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Verstappen, Alonso, and Leclerc as the top three.
okay,
That's it.
these aren't going to be the same across the board.
Oh
Um,
boy.
he's won here before.
Mm,
It's still going to be a Red Bull. I think Perez does get the win this weekend. He's been given the title of street circuit merchant, so let's see if he lives up to that name and gets another street circuit win. Verstappen easy P2. But for P3, I'm going to go the other McLaren guy, the other Aussie in the field, Oscar Piastri. I think that last year was a strong year for him, and I think he's going to continue on with that by getting McLaren's first podium of the year this weekend. He is starting fifth, so not too crazy. Um, but I think that just about does it. Is there anything we're missing?
mm, not that I
No, no.
know of.
Okay. So, with that being said, guys, thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of the Burning Rubber Podcast. Next week, we'll be going over reviews of the IndyCar season opener, Phoenix, and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, as well as predictions moving into next week's races. Fidel, I think, just shit himself. I'm not sure. Nevertheless, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.